experts. All your CPD and revalidation needs met in one place. Our expertly curated box sets are the perfect way to engage with the latest thinking, issue by issue. They make revalidation easy and are the perfect accompaniment to any project or university coursework. In addition to video from expert speakers across maternity and midwifery, there is easily accessible research and links to the latest government policy documents. Our reflective questions at the end are the perfect primer for your revalidation. In the same way the Maternity and Midwifery Forum provides certificates to show that you have attended these festivals, we can provide certificates for those who have consumed the content of a box set and submitted their written answers to the reflective questions provided by our curator, Dr. Jenny Hall. Midwives, maternity professionals and students, do not miss out. Subscribe to Matflix today. Check out the box sets at www.matflix.co.uk.
I'm Nicole Rajan Brown. I'm a proud midwife and I'm proud to be supporting the Maternity and Midwifery Forum, who have helped me to grow, and for creating wonderful professional digital and online resources for midwives across the globe. The Maternity and Midwifery Forum ran their programs free and online all through COVID. Now we want to grow the catalogue, spread it worldwide and keep it free to use for students and staff. To do this, we have launched a fundraising appeal to help keep all of the 8 wonderful maternity and midwifery festivals free. Keep the weekly Maternity and Midwifery Hour and the weekly newsletters free to midwives and maternity staff. You regularly tell us how much you value these free resources, so do give what you can.
I'll do anything to pull you into the light, 'cause everything will change when you open your eyes. Yeah. So don't you let the sunlight dim out without you. Don't you realize how lucky we are? Open up your heart, baby, let it all go tonight. Live your life like you was running out with a light. We gotta scream it out.
The Maternity and Midwifery Forum brings you Matflix, video streaming from maternity experts. All your CPD and revalidation needs met in one place. Our expertly curated box
Hello, everybody. Hi, and so lovely to have you with us this evening for a really special hour together. And I'd just like to say a really lovely, warm welcome to everybody and a special hello to my lovely guest and colleague and friend, Sarah Johnson. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so lovely. And we're also so grateful to the Maternity and Midwifery Hour for hosting these fantastic opportunities to share practice and learning together and to have conversations that can be streamed and shared. We're really delighted that anybody that's watching, that you're here, that you're taking a moment to listen and learn with us tonight and this evening. So special thank you to Neil and Karen and all the team at the Maternity and Midwifery Hour, but also to the lovely usual host and chair, Sue MacDonald, for giving us a window to come together and nurture our connection, Sarah, and be together to talk about how we've nurtured and continue to nurture connections to really support infant feeding services, care provision, and experiences for families receiving care. Looking specifically tonight at the work that we've been doing around the Baby Friendly Initiative and supporting that important global to local work. So before we jump into exploring the content of tonight, I thought it'd be lovely to take a moment to reflect together and to think together about what's been happening, impacting on maternity and perinatal services. You know, for us, we're working across England. And in England and in that national context, we know we've been listening and learning to a lot of new reports that have come out to help us to understand the context of maternity and perinatal care in England. And it's been really important to look at those reports and learn from them together and pick out the learning and then using that to really drive change and support the necessary change to support the health system to flourish, everybody working in the maternity services and perinatal services to flourish, and most importantly for the families that are accessing care to feel safe and receive really quality, personalised, meaningful and relationship-based care. Alongside the context that we've got here in England, we know that globally there continues to be ongoing conflicts and crisis, both humanitarian, social, financial, and war and conflict that's having a massive impact on people. There's environmental crises and impacts all around the world that are happening right now. And we just want to take a moment to recognise that and to also offer our opportunity to be part of a solution where we can learn together and share and then really push change through sharing best practice, elevating issues, and using our platforms here at the Maternity and Midwifery Hour, but also across All for Maternity and the Practicing Midwife journals to really elevate, share knowledge and best practice. So we have put a call out for papers. So anybody that's working to make change and to help address issues anywhere in the world, we'd really welcome you to share. And I know that the whole team at Maternity and Midwifery Forum and at the Maternity and Midwifery Hour are also invested in learning more and doing more to help circulate best practice and information and evidence. But tonight, I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit about what we've got planned for you. And before we do that, Sarah, I just thought it'd be nice for us to maybe take a reflection on how our week's been going. So I was thinking about what's been your moment of your week this week.
So my moment is from today, actually. So our brand new future midwives, so our first year student midwives have started this week. So really, it just fills me up. September, all educators will be aware, is we need to take a breath. But then it's just so incredible. So we do team building for all our first years. So I had the pleasure of being at Burnley with our new first years today. And I had to put makeup on this morning and I've cried it all off. Really emotional, really emotional. Just some incredible women sharing their stories, where they've been, where they are now, where they want to go in the future. And yeah, just really, really special.
Oh, it's It's so lovely that you're able to be with those, aspiring midwives, those future midwives, and sharing the journeys that have led them to making this choice to come and join our profession. And what a celebration. How many new students have joined you then today?
We've got 67 in total, so across Preston campus and Burnley campus. So today I was with the Burnley students, there's 24 of them. It's just a privilege, isn't it? Being an educator, it's so special.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think the moment of my week, looking back over the last week, has been watching my little boy, Will. He's just taken up golf. And it's not really a sport that I'm that interested in, but I've been to watch him, and then we've been together to like a driving range, and just honestly watching his excitement at enjoying that sort of activity. It's been lovely, and we actually caught a little bit of sunshine as well on the course. I was really enjoying just being out in nature and absorbing that time together with him. So that was really special for me this week. And I think it really ties in with the focus of our maternity and midwifery hour this evening, where we really want to hone in on relationships, and think about how we can continue to nurture connections together. And I think, Sarah, one of the big things that I've reflected on as well is tonight we're actually coming together as previous colleagues. Actually, we've worked in a few spaces and places together, and our lives have touched each other so many times and so many points. I actually remember when you first started your journey as a midwife, when you made the decision to move over from nursing into midwifery. And it was such an honour to see you, already a massive leader contributing to maternity and perinatal care before you even began. But it's so wonderful to see you now flourishing in your work and role. And then I was thinking the other beautiful guest that we have this evening, Professor Jill Thompson, who can't be with us live, but has kindly recorded a presentation for us to share. Is also one of our colleagues and a previous person that we work really closely to. And together, we've had the real fortune and privilege in our careers to work really closely with the Baby Friendly initiative standards. So looking at those global World Health Organization and UNICEF standards and 10 steps to successful breastfeeding, through to their reiteration and adaptation into the UNICEF UK baby friendly context, and those revised standards that we're all working to now. So actually, what an opportunity to talk about the way that we've connected together in our career this evening, and then to share some context. So the way that this hour is going to go, we've got 3 sessions, presentations for you. So I'm going to make a start just to set the context and scene for the hour together. And then we'll be sharing a presentation by the lovely Professor Jill Thompson. And then Sarah's going to close the presentations with a focus in on higher education and the work that's being done by educators, students, and all the wonderful interprofessional education that's happening at the University of Central Lancashire, where we've all shared our practice and care. So it's really lovely to be together tonight. So the first thing that I'd like to do then is to share with you some of the insights that I've had. I've been really lucky in my career to have done a PhD at the University of Central Lancashire, and with actually Professor Jill Thompson was one of my supervisors. So I've got this amazing connection to everybody in lots of different ways. And, myself, Sarah and Jill, we've all taught each other, shared learning, and translated knowledge and evidence and practice-based approaches all together. And that's something that I think sets the tone for the context of this Maternity and Midwifery Hour. The kind of way I'd like to frame the hour is to really focus on the importance of us all having balance and creating coherence. Sarah and I work really closely, and Jill as well. Jill's done so much work looking at the importance of creating a sense of coherence and applying the beautiful philosophy and work of Aaron Antonovsky alongside the brilliant Professor Sue Down, who leads the REACH research unit. at the University of Central Lancashire as well. In fact, Sue was the first researcher and midwifery researcher to apply the philosophy of Erin Antonovsky to midwifery. And here you're going to hear me talking about that in relation to creating coherent nutrition and nurture policy, practice and research. So this hour is really to think about policy, and then thinking about how we can support practice through Sarah's presentation, how we can really strengthen quality care for families through quality education and education practice. And then Jill's going to share insights into research and what's been happening in the areas of research in relation to the Baby Friendly Initiative, and obviously supporting every family to get the optimal care around their infant feeding choices, experiences and outcomes. So this little session is just going to have 4 small parts. Just to share with you, you know, for some of you listening, you might not have heard of sense of coherence before. I like to think of it as balance. How do we get balance in our life? How do we generate well-being in our life? So it helps us, it gives us a little tool to think about that in a meaningful way, especially as midwives and maternity professionals. And then I want to think about, why does sense of coherence matter for policy, practice and research? And then how do we apply it to create coherent infant feeding and nutrition and nurture policy, practice and research, thinking about connections and collaborations. So what is sense of coherence? Well, I've already mentioned Erin Antonovsky. What an amazing medical sociologist. And unfortunately, Erin has died just recently, actually, but his life work will always be around for us to read. And, you know, I always love philosophers and researchers that write in easy to access ways. And all of his writing is so easy. So we've shared some of that for you, and the links will be shared with in the resources on the Maternity and Midwifery Forum website. So look out for those. But if you just want to search for his work, you'll really enjoy it. And Aaron really spent his life's work looking at how we can create balance in our lives and generate well-being, regardless of the context that we live in. So regardless of the stresses, which are just normal, part of all of our lives. So what is it in detail? Let's have a little look. Here's the lovely man. Here's Aaron. And he articulated through his research work, he started to notice, I'm really interested what generates well-being for people. And he generated a salutogenic orientation to health and well-being. So actually, when we break this word down, the Latin salu means health, and the Greek genesis means origins. So salutogenesis just translates to origins of health. And he was really interested in where does health originate, and how can we understand what makes us well and keeps us well? Sort of like an alternative to pathogenesis, which is the origin of disease. And obviously, of course, we need to understand both when we're working in maternity services and perinatal care services. So Antonovsky was clear in his research that stressors and stresses are ubiquitous for us all in our human lives and existence. You know, we're always going to be facing physical, emotional, social, financial, cultural pressure, stress, and that actually is quite normal. And so actually it's really important for us to understand how we can generate balance and well-being despite the stresses that we might face in our lives. That's really an important part of us helping to support families with that infant feeding journey. What he recognised is that our health and well-being in any area of our life, including feeding our babies and becoming parents, we're always on a continuum between healthies on one end and disease on the other. So it's like life's a continuum, and even in a day, we can feel like we're moving up and down that continuum. So just thinking about our health on that continuum is really critical, and I think really helpful when we try and understand how we can best support families with their infant feeding experiences and choices. So he also was really interested, though, to think about all the ways that we can develop resilience and resistance through all the resources we might have in our life available to us, so we can develop a resistance to some of the pressures and strains that can be normal and challenging through our life. So he kind of grouped these and called them generalized resistance resources, or GRRs. And I just think they're quite useful to think about. And actually, if you're supporting families, these are some of the things that you might want to work through with families as we prepare for becoming parents. Really helpful, or you can apply them to your own life as well. But he thought that's quite complicated. So he said, I want to make it more simple for people to understand this. So he actually continued to group all of these things into 3 core areas. And he said, actually, you know, in order for our life to feel in balance and for us to feel a sense of coherence in our life, we need to understand what's happening to us. We need to have the resources to manage what's happening, but most importantly, life should feel meaningful to us. Now, for us in maternity and perinatal care, we're so lucky that our work has meaning and can have a massive impact on the people that we support. And I think when you have a family as well, and when you've had your baby, for most people, that's also really meaningful to them. And so there's lots of meaning in our work and in our lives as new parents. So it's really important then for us as midwives or leaders of maternity service to think about how, though, can we create policies and practices that people can understand and can manage. And how can we remind people all the time of what's meaningful and what's our purpose? And so I noticed through this work, when I was working in infant feeding and doing my PhD exploring the Baby Friendly Initiative in the UK context, I thought, wouldn't this model be really helpful to help us understand how to best transform infant feeding care? So what about nutrition and nurture? Why does sense of coherence matter when we're thinking about the families we're aiming to care with that infant feeding journey? Well, we know that infant feeding can be quite a challenging time for some families. No matter how easy and smooth the transition to parenthood can be, we can always face hurdles along the way and bumps along the way. We're learning a new skill and it can be challenging. So we can face stresses and challenges, and actually the sense of coherence construct can give us some approaches that might help us to address those. We know that it's useful to use sense of coherence to help with our life consistency, to consider load balance as we adapt to parenthood, how we manage all the roles and all the practicalities of that, and also about the emotional closeness of those experiences as well. So sense of coherence can help us work through those together in our practice. Because really, sense of coherence and salutogenesis is really interested in the relationship between societal conditions and health. And obviously, everything we do as parents and everything we do in maternity care is really influenced by the political framework and landscape. So that's really important. And we always have known in infant feeding care that we must take care with the policies and frameworks and the way that the political landscape's impacting on us as families. So it's really important that we influence and continue to influence policies at every level to really centre the families that we're caring for at the local and individual level. So as midwives and maternity professionals, it's really important we're aware of policies and frameworks and continue to influence them. And indeed, baby-friendly initiatives are an example of how local practices influence global policy and now continue to be offering frameworks to guide ongoing local practice. What a beautiful iteration for us all to be remembering. So the Baby Friendly Initiative was born out of this political drive to strengthen infant feeding care and infant feeding outcomes and experiences, and created a global framework for us all to work towards, that's then adapted at a national level to a local level to inform everyday practice. So just that's been picked up by this little framework. In order for us really to develop strategies, these are all the really make sure that policy is a national, and this has been developed by Yale University. and is really helping to drive national changes in feeding policy and how we can become breastfeeding friendly. I did my PhD and explored how the Baby Friendly Initiative UK context impacts on cultural settings in the UK context, and the cultural practices and experience of both staff and service users. So you can read my study in more detail, but I was really interested in how the national picture of the UK UNICEF Baby Friendly really adapted that global policy to a national context across all of these professional areas, both in the hospital and community context. And that what I loved about the policy was that it really centred caring connections for all, focusing on close and loving relationships. And my study, just this is a snapshot of the things that I explored and found, was that of the baby-friendly framework in the UK, with this focus on relationship-based care, helps to create an amazing coherent policy framework for helping midwives to remember who they are, to focus on the relationship, and to have a language to use to help them with the understanding and the tools to manage infant feeding support in everyday practice. And that was such a beautiful coming together of informational, practical, and emotional frameworks to guide us in the work that we do, really closely aligned to the sense of coherence construct. So the policy and framework and guidelines itself actually offers a sense of coherence policy that I believe other policies could use as a benchmark to guide meaningful frameworks for relationship-based practice and care. So here you can see that whilst we can't always change the context of postnatal care and care environments, they continue to be busy and stressful and pressured by the mechanics of time and competing cultures and busyness. Actually, the framework of the baby-friendly standards and effective leadership and team approach that is taken in baby-friendly accredited services helps to counter and create balance to those pressures, and offers that coherent support to drive positive change and to offer meaningful experience to families. So collectively, sense of coherence can offer really useful frameworks when we're developing policy, such as infant feeding policy. For example, an example of that would be the baby-friendly frameworks and policies. But also we need to join that with a balance of effective leadership, both transactional and transformational, a real collective team approach, which we're sharing here today, the importance of sharing across research, education, practice, and then also the importance that policies in the future could use the benchmark of the baby-friendly UNICEF UK policy to help as a guide on how we might move maternity care forwards. So I'm going to stop sharing just so that we can then come and learn a little bit more from the wonderful Jill Thompson. So I wanted to just create a little bit of a framework to think about this importance of working together collaboratively, but working also aligned with really clear philosophical frameworks to help us in our work as maternity professionals across education and research and also practice. And we're delighted at the University of Central Lancashire. I've just recently left the University of Central Lancashire, but I still feel like part of the team because I've been there for so long. But at the University of Central Lancashire, everybody across the maternity research, education and practice settings are really aligned with the sense of coherence construct. And I know any of the students that are watching that have been past students at UCLan and current students will also become really familiar with that language of salutogenesis and the framework of sense of coherence. But I'd like to introduce now the wonderful Professor Jill Thompson. She's a professor in perinatal health within the maternal, paternal and infant nutrition and nurture unit, the main unit, which is part of the University of Central Lancashire. And she also is the lead curator for the biannual Maternal, Paternal and Infant Nutrition and Nurture Unit conference that she's going to be telling you a little bit more about. There's actually a call for abstracts open at the moment for that conference, which will be taking place next year in 2025. And there's also bookings are open to book on to take part. And it's at Grange over Sands in the beautiful Cumbria. But Jill herself has a psychology academic background and a PhD in midwifery. She focused on understanding birth trauma and has done lots of amazing work focusing on experiences and needs of families. Jill's research interests relate to psychosocial influences and implications of perinatal care, with particular interest in birth trauma and factors impacting upon maternal well-being and peer support models of care. But you're going to learn a little bit more about the work that Jill and her team are currently doing. So we're going to sit back now and watch a pre-recorded video with Jill Thompson. So thanks so much, Jill, for being with us.
Hi everyone, my name's Professor Jill Thompson. So I'm just going to provide a short presentation to tell you about some of the work that we do within the main research unit and about how our work really emphasises the importance of connections and relationships. And here's the main team. And MAIN stands for Maternal, Parental and Infant Nutrition and Nurture. And so from the left to the right, we have Lucy, and then Anastasia, and then there's me, Nicola, Rebecca and Victoria. And we're quite an eclectic mix. So we've got a number of us. So Lucy, me and Rebecca have got psychology backgrounds. We have Anastasia, who's some bio engineer, so does some very clever work looking at thermal imagery and kind of bodily movements during the labour process. We have Victoria, who's a nutritionist, and then Nicola, social science. So our work tends to centre around these three main areas. So first of all, around the delivery of perinatal care. So this includes the work that we've undertaken around antenatal education or women's experiences around childbirth and of infant feeding support. So for example, we've done a number of evaluations of breastfeeding peer support services. And we also did a longitudinal evaluation looking at implementation of the Baby Friendly Initiative. Our work also goes into parental and family mental health, wellbeing and social relationships. So over the last couple of years, we've been doing an evaluation of one of the new reproductive trauma services. And this is quite an interesting model in that there's one service that actually provides support across 4 maternity trusts in Lancashire and South Cumbria. We've also done work with a number of charities. So for example, Lancashire Women, who've been doing bedside support for parents whose babies have needed care on a neonatal unit. And the other area is around maternal, infant and young child feeding and nutrition. So this kind of overlaps with a lot of the infant feeding and breastfeeding work we've done, but also kind of draws on the expertise of Victoria, who's done a number of nutrition related projects and in low income countries such as Pakistan. So I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of some of the projects that we've done or that we're doing and about how they link in with this kind of underlying focus on connections and relationships. So I think first to highlight, we've done lots of research and evaluation into peer support within different contexts. So around infant feeding, for parents who've had an infant admitted to neonatal care due to being born premature or sick, peer support for women following birth trauma, or for women who have histories of interpersonal violence and harm. And peer support is defined as receiving support from someone who has a shared history and who's received some training to provide this support. So rather than it just being someone who you already know within your network, it's someone who's been identified, trained, supported to provide peer support. And I say this work repeatedly highlights how peers who understand, your realities can help to normalise negative emotions and provide reassurance, validation and hope to their situations. Peer support is really valuable in improving psychological and emotional well-being and increasing individuals' social networks. And we're currently working on a new model of infant feeding peer support that involves an asset-based approach. And an asset-based approach focuses on identifying the strengths and resources and capabilities of individuals and communities. So rather than concentrating on needs or deficits or problems. So in this study, we're using a friends and family diagram. So this is whereby the peer supporter works with the woman to kind of create a visual diagram about who's available to them within their own personal and social networks to help them with infant feeding, and also giving women an assets leaflet, which gives them all details about what is available within their communities. So this is, we actually had funding for a feasibility study, and this is a multi-centre trial. So we are literally, hopefully, well, within the next month, going to find out whether this was effective. So it's been a very exciting project to be involved in. You know, we've done 2 evaluations of the National Breastfeeding Helpline. So there was one, I think it's about 2012, 13, and then we did another one like 10 years later. You know, and again, this highlighting about how these peers are a lifeline for parents. So those who are at home and struggling to access support, you know, and actually being able to receive support from new mothers via telephone or social media who understand a wide array of infant feeding situations and experiences, you know, is invaluable. It helps to reduce stress, increase knowledge, confidence. You know, for a number of those who access these services, it makes a crucial difference in breastfeeding continuation. And we've also done some really interesting work looking at the use of incentives to breastfeed, and this is quite controversial. I know there was a big study undertaken in, I think it was from Leeds, looking at kind of giving women monetary vouchers. But this was a different type of incentive. So it was working with the Breastfeeding Network, and they provided new mothers with a series of gifts, such as a photo frame to put in a picture of the baby, so to look at to help them stimulate, you know, milk production, giving them like a magazine of their choice to encourage them to take out, giving them a voucher for like going out to use a cafe for coffee and cake to get them out and about and spending time with partners. But I think what was really lovely about this project is that all the gifts were designed to stimulate and continue breastfeeding through self-care and through connections and relationships. And one of the key things we found when we were doing the evaluation of this project is that the gifts helped to build this stronger bond between the peer supporters and the women. So it's because they were providing gifts, the women were much more likely to invite them into the homes. Oh yeah, come and see me. Give me, you know, they liked getting the gift. But because the peer supporters were in more regular contact, they were better able to provide support. They got a better understanding about the woman and their relationship and the family context, so they could give more nuanced, targeted support to help the woman and her family. And Rebecca and the team's also done lots of work around loneliness. And so as part of this, she's been looking at evidence summaries and looking at blogs online and trying to get some funding to help develop interventions to to help people who are lonely. I don't know if you're ever going to prevent loneliness, but to help mitigate the kind of negative impacts of loneliness. So parenting loneliness, you know, that many new parents struggle with this transition to parenthood. You know, this can occur as a lead up to the birth, and the first few weeks after the birth are often filled with, birth preparation, people coming round, visitors, that whole adjustment. You've got a new baby to think about. And once things quieten down and they settle into life with the baby, that kind of focus disappears. And this can be when a feeling of loneliness can begin. For many new parents, there's a large contrast between pre-baby and post-baby life. Before having a baby, parents can be busy with work and hobbies and friends and, travel. But once these opportunities for stimulation and interaction decrease, this lack of connection with others can create this sense of loneliness. And this can be even more so for parents who've got children with disabilities or, sickness. So yeah, this kind of evolving area that's been worked on within our team, led by Rebecca. So it'll be interesting to see where this work takes us. And I think just to highlight this, collaboration, connection and relationships also about us as an academic institution, that we always are collaborating with service users and academics and clinicians and voluntary sectors and external businesses and partners to make sure that we have the right skill mix, that we're targeting needs, we have who we need to do the most successful work that we can. So I just wanted to highlight how some of our work is influencing policy and practice. And this is specifically in relation to breastfeeding and infant feeding. So as I was highlighting earlier, within the team, we do some broader areas like perinatal mental health and nutrition, but specifically in regard to this infant feeding agenda, our work sort of heavily influenced the change in the UNICEF UK baby friendly initiative standards. Was really this kind of move away from just having a more focus on exclusive breastfeeding to more about parent-infant relationships and the importance of that and kind of protecting parents' mental health. This kind of comes from some of the work that I did about looking at shame as well, the shame that women can feel if they do breastfeed or they don't. Our works kind of underpins breastfeeding guidance within Public Health Wales, within the Scottish Government, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality in America, the European Union Agency, so NICE, postnatal care, so some of our work cited in there, and specifically around breastfeeding, and also the Australian National Breastfeeding Strategy. So we're very proud that our work's kind of going on to help influence important, and systemic change. And I'm just going to do a plug for our conference. So next year, we're running our next Nutrition and Nurture Conference, and this will be our 12th time that this conference is run. So, primarily in the UK, but we have held some of these conferences overseas, such as in America, Sweden, and Australia. So the kind of key aims of the conference are to illuminate socio-cultural, political, and economic influences upon infant and child feeding, explore the nature of relationships within families in connection with various types of nutritive and nurturing behaviour, increase the understanding of breastfeeding as a biopsychosocial activity, enhance understanding of the complex interactions between socio-cultural, psychological and biological factors in infant and child feeding, and focus on key initiatives that may impact upon practices related to infant and child feeding. The conference is for 3 days, running in April next year. So this is where we hold the conference. So it's in Grange-over-Sands, the rather stunning Grange Hotel, and it's a really wonderful opportunity to show our international kind of partners and visitors, who attend the conference, just how beautiful England can be. So finally, I just want to highlight who our keynote speakers are at our conference next year. So we've got Philip Baker, so he's from Sydney in Australia, who's going to be talking about ultra-processed foods, so very topical research area. Cheryl Battersby, who'll be sharing some of her research about how we should feed sick babies in the neonatal unit to reduce NEC, including the use of donor milk. Constance Ching from Malaysia, who'll be talking about the use of artificial intelligence to track WHO code implementation and breaches of the WHO code. Kate Jolly, so she's a professor from Birmingham, so she's the principal investigator on this asset-based peer support intervention I just talked about previously. So she led over this multi-centre trial that was running in 5 areas, and in our team we were the Northwest lead for this trial. So yeah, she's going to be giving all the kind of headline and insights into what we found within this trial. Then we've got Elaine Spate, who's a reader in curatorial practice from my university in UCLan, and she's been doing some very innovative, creative ways in which to promote and support breastfeeding. So she'll be sharing some of this work with us. And then finally, Sarah Young from Northwestern University in America, who'll be talking about her work about, malnutrition and nutritional needs in children and young people. So we have the abstract submission is still open till the end of November, and the conference will be in April 2025. Okay, thanks for listening.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear from Jill and to think about all the work that's happening through the main unit at the University of Central Lancashire. Thanks so much, Jill. And if anybody that's watching us live wants to ask any questions, please do pop those in to the comments section on social media channels, and we can field those at the end of the session. So please do feel free to ask any questions and we'll do our best to answer them. So I'd like now to introduce my lovely colleague, Sarah Johnson. It's been already lovely for us to hear from Sarah and her moment of the week. And you've probably guessed that Sarah is a midwifery educator from the fact that she's been introducing and welcoming new first-year students at the University of Central Lancashire. But she's a senior lecturer there and a baby-friendly initiative lead. So she's been working at the University of Central Lancashire, leading all of the baby-friendly initiative activity. And she also serves on the UNICEF UK Baby Friendly Initiative Qualifications Board. This is really super exciting for me to be able to say that Sarah's just been shortlisted for this year's RCM Awards in the category of Excellence in Midwifery Leadership, and I couldn't agree more that what a worthy nominee for that award. I knew from the moment I met you, Sarah, that you're an incredible leader, and it's just wonderful to watch you flourishing. She's a passionate advocate for inclusivity and relationship building within healthcare, and she's actively role models how fostering strong relationships between midwives and multidisciplinary teams creates supportive and collaborative workforces. And this creates a culture of kindness and improves practice, particularly infant feeding and relationship building. Additionally, Sarah's dedicated to promoting neurodivergence and widening participation across education and practice and supporting everyone to achieve their potential. You can follow Sarah on LinkedIn, just look for her name, Sarah Johnson, or on X at SarahJ_MW. So over to you, Sarah, who's going to be sharing insights from the work you've been doing across education to support baby-friendly initiative standards. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. So I want to talk about what education's role is in terms of nurturing relationships and how those relationships